be prepared. The eclipse energy is about to peak, and most people have no idea what they just walked into. Today's total lunar eclipse doesn't just paint the moon blood red. It cracks open a wave of energy that's hitting you right now, whether you felt it or not. And the truth is, the hours after the eclipse are always the most unstable. This is when the energy gets into your head, your decisions, your reactions, your impulses. This is the moment when your choices matter most. Because there are things you absolutely need to avoid, things that seem harmless. Things you've probably already done this morning without realizing how badly they can throw you off. And if you don't know what they are, you're already one step behind the shift that just landed. The reason why you need to avoid looking for signs right after a blood moon: people get desperate for confirmation, they wait for a miracle. They refresh their messages, they look for repeating numbers, strange coincidences, anything that proves something big is happening. But the moment you start hunting for signs, you stop noticing what's actually shifting, because today isn't about fireworks, it's about seeds being planted in the dark. The energy moves underground first, quietly, almost suspiciously subtle. And when nothing dramatic happens right away, your mind does what it always does. It panics, it doubts, it tells you nothing changed. That's why looking for signs is the biggest trap of the post-eclipse window. You're judging the soil before the roots even form. Patience today isn't passive, it's power. The blood moon works in silence before it ever works in sight. And if you think this sounds slow or disappointing, wait until you hear what happens when the wrong kind of energy tries to attach itself to you right after an eclipse. Because that's the part nobody talks about. You should avoid cutting your hair. There's a strange thing that happens after a blood moon. People suddenly feel the urge to change something physical about themselves. A haircut, a new color, a piercing, a tattoo, a whole new look. It comes out of nowhere, and it feels urgent, almost like your body is demanding you to shed an old version of yourself right this second. But urgency is not intuition, and intensity is not clarity. Eclipses expose identity layers in a way nothing else does. They pull old versions to the surface and make you feel disconnected from who you've been. That sensation makes people want to cut something off, dye something new, erase something, or create a new mark just to feel different again. But here's the truth. Any decision born in emotional intensity will always betray you in calm. A blood moon exaggerates your sense of identity shift. It doesn't solidify it, not yet. Right now, your appearance feels symbolic. It feels like changing it will change everything else. But that feeling is temporary. It's the side effect of the energy peeling away outdated self-perceptions. So avoid drastic haircuts. Avoid spontaneous tattoos. Avoid dyeing your hair because it feels right in the moment. Give it 3 days. If the desire still stands after your energy stabilizes, then it's aligned, not reactive. And the funny thing is, most people realize they didn't actually want the change. They just wanted the feeling of newness. But there's something even more important than resisting impulsive reinvention. Something people ruin without even realizing it. The biggest mistake people often make after the eclipse. Manifesting during an eclipse isn't the problem. In fact, the energy today makes manifestation sharper, clearer, and more honest than usual. The real issue comes right after, when people start talking about their plans, their goals, their manifestations before the energy has even settled. This is where everything collapses. The moment you speak your vision too early, you expose it to people who don't have the capacity to hold it, and some who would rather see it fail. This isn't about superstition or fear. It's about energetic vulnerability. After an eclipse, your intentions are still forming, still delicate, still absorbing the new frequency. When you talk about them before they solidify, you weaken them. Not every ear deserves access to the future you're building. And right after a blood moon, this truth hits harder than ever. There's another hidden danger. Once you speak a plan out loud, you psychologically lock yourself into it. Even if it's not aligned, even if it's not truly what you want, you end up feeling responsible for a version of yourself that was never meant to last. The eclipse uproots old timelines, but talking too soon forces you back into them. Protect your ideas until the energy settles. The silence isn't secrecy, it's power. And now it's time for today's comment of the day. Stay aligned, stay grounded, and I hope March is filled with blessings for all. Alignment keeps you focused. Being grounded keeps you balanced. And blessings, those tend to meet people who are both. As we step into a new month, this is the kind of energy that sets the tone. Calm, intentional, and open. Appreciate you putting that out there. Avoid fear-based spiritual thinking. Every time a blood moon appears, the world immediately floods with dramatic interpretations. You'll hear people calling it an omen, a warning, a doorway for something dark, or a sign that everything is about to fall apart. And because this eclipse was a total lunar eclipse, the intensity online multiplies. People feed off fear, and that fear spreads faster than the truth. But here's the reality. Nothing is hunting you. Nothing is punishing you. And nothing is collapsing unless it was already unstable long before today. The eclipse didn't create chaos. It only revealed the cracks that were already there. The problem is never the sky. The problem is how quickly people let their imaginations spin out of control when something looks dramatic. Fear-based spiritual thinking is one of the most damaging reactions people fall into after an eclipse. The collective nervous system tightens. Suddenly, every sound feels like a sign. Every inconvenience feels like a warning, and every emotion feels supernatural, but most of that is anxiety wearing a spiritual costume. If you let fear narrate your eclipse experience, you lose your power instantly. Fear is the fastest way to misinterpret a blessing as a threat. The truth is, a blood moon is not a curse. It's not a spiritual attack. It's not the universe saying you're unprepared or unworthy. The eclipse is a mirror, not a monster. It shows you where you're aligned, where you're resisting, and where you're overdue for a shift. That's it. And this is where empowerment comes in. You are not at the mercy of the sky. You are responsible for your response. The eclipse doesn't decide your fate. It highlights what you're ready to handle. So if your mind starts drifting into fear or superstition, bring it back. Remind yourself that nothing external has power over you unless you hand it over willingly. Right now you're standing in one of the most potent energetic windows of the year. The last thing you should do is shrink, because if you allow fear to take the wheel, you miss the real opportunity that the blood moon is trying to hand you. You shouldn't eat this after the eclipse. After a total lunar eclipse, the nervous system becomes more alert than usual. You may not notice it consciously, but your body absolutely does. The energy spike from the eclipse shifts the way your system holds tension. This is why overeating or choosing heavy, greasy, dense meals right after a blood moon can make you feel unusually drained, irritated, or sluggish far more than it normally would. And no, it's not because the food is cursed or the day is magically dangerous. It's because eclipses thin the boundary between your emotional state and your physical reactions. Your body processes everything more intensely, including what you eat. If you dump a heavy load into your system right now, your energy gets weighed down before it even has a chance to settle. Think of it like this. Your whole being is recalibrating. Your nerves are heightened, your awareness is sharper, and your emotional state is more impressionable. A dense meal will hit you like an emotional brick wall, even if it's something you normally enjoy. Don't celebrate the shadow by weighing yourself down. This isn't about restriction, it's about clarity. Lighter meals, fresh foods, hydration, and intentional eating help your system move through the post-eclipse window without getting stuck. You're giving your body the space it needs to integrate whatever shifted today. You're helping your energy stay clear instead of muddy. When you eat lightly, it's not about being spiritually pure. It's about being functional. It's about making sure your physical state doesn't sabotage your emotional one. And once you understand this, the next thing people do after an eclipse will make even more sense, because it's one of the sneakiest ways people block their alignment without realizing it. Do not sleep facing this direction tonight. Most people don't think twice about the way they sleep, but on the night of a total lunar eclipse, it becomes far more important than they realize. The eclipse may be over, but its residue is still active, and the mind is unusually open, processing, reorganizing, and trying to settle into a new internal landscape. This is why sleeping directly facing a large window or with the moonlight pouring straight onto your body can leave you feeling restless, overstimulated, or unable to drop into deep sleep without knowing why. It's not because the moonlight is harmful, but because eclipses represent unfinished closure, a chapter that's shifting but hasn't fully sealed. When your sleeping position leaves you completely exposed to that lingering reflective light, the mind interprets it as a signal to stay alert. Even psychologically, light exposure tells your nervous system that the day is not finished yet. Pair that with the heightened emotional sensitivity most people feel after an eclipse, and suddenly your entire night becomes a continuation of the internal processing you should have left behind hours ago. These small physical choices matter more after events like this, because your emotional waves are heavily influenced by your environment. Something as simple as repositioning your bed, drawing the curtains, or turning your face away from the window can dramatically change the quality of your rest tonight. You're giving your mind permission to close the door and recover instead of staying half awake in a state of subtle vigilance. Position matters more than you think, and on a night like this, it truly does. How you place yourself determines whether you wake up grounded or whether you carry the eclipse's turbulence into tomorrow. And once you understand why this kind of subtle influence matters, you'll see exactly why the next mistake people make after an eclipse is so damaging, not physically, but emotionally, in a way that cuts much deeper. Avoid self-punishment. A total lunar eclipse has a way of bringing certain truths to the surface, sometimes abruptly and without filter. People suddenly become aware of a habit they've ignored, a pattern they didn't want to admit, a flaw they kept brushing aside, or a reality they hoped wouldn't catch up to them. And the moment the truth appears, many people fall into the trap of punishing themselves for not being better, faster, stronger, or wiser before today. But this is the worst reaction you can have after an eclipse, because self-punishment closes the very doorway the eclipse just opened. The purpose of an eclipse is illumination, not humiliation. Its job is to show you what's ready to shift, not to shame you for what you didn't fix earlier. Yet people will take that clarity and twist it into self-criticism, convincing themselves they failed simply because something uncomfortable came to light. What they forget is that awareness is a gift. It's progress, it's movement. Nothing revealed is meant to break you, it's meant to release you. When you punish yourself for what the eclipse exposed, you anchor that old version of yourself even deeper. You trap yourself in the very pattern that was trying to rise to the surface and leave. Instead of judging yourself, this is the moment to breathe, observe, and choose differently. The red light of the blood moon doesn't condemn you. It reveals the doorway out of the cycle you've been stuck in. Self-compassion is not weakness here, it's strategy. When you meet the truth with softness, it transforms. When you meet it with harshness, it hides again. Avoid bright artificial lights after sunset. There's something uniquely delicate about the hours following a total lunar eclipse. Even though the event itself has passed, your body is still tracing the same path the moon took, moving from brightness through shadow and slowly back into light again. This isn't just poetic symbolism. Your nervous system responds to this shift in a very real, very physical way. It becomes more sensitive, more impressionable, and more reactive to the stimuli around you, especially to artificial light. When you surround yourself with harsh overhead lighting, bright screens, neon signs, or overstimulating nighttime spaces, you interrupt that natural descent into calm. Your brain reads bright artificial light as a demand to stay alert, even though what you actually need is decompression. That mismatch creates subtle internal friction, the kind that doesn't feel dramatic but leaves you drained, uneasy, or strangely restless without understanding why. Dim lighting tonight isn't about being mystical, it's about aligning yourself with your own biology. Your system is trying to settle after absorbing a massive energetic spike, and the last thing it needs is to be blasted with stimuli that force it back into survival mode. When you soften the environment around you, your mind relaxes, your breath deepens, and your emotional state stabilizes. Your nervous system can't rise if you don't give it a place to land. Lower lighting also reinforces the symbolism of the eclipse transition. The moon didn't jump from shadow to brightness in one instant. It eased its way back, slowly reclaiming its light. When you mirror that gentleness, you allow your system to recalibrate in the same smooth, grounded way. You're not rushing your emotions. You're not forcing clarity. You're letting the day end the way nature intended, quietly, gradually, and without sensory warfare. Even your intuition works better in softer light. High stimulation crowds it out. Low stimulation invites it forward. You'll notice your thoughts become clearer, your energy feels more contained, and your inner dialogue shifts from chaotic to intentional. These aren't small effects. They shape the way you move into tomorrow. The goal tonight isn't darkness, it's softness. Give yourself enough silence and dimness to let your body close the energetic loop the eclipse opened. Once you do, everything that comes next physically, emotionally, spiritually will meet you with far more clarity and ease. And if you're still here, still watching, thank you. Truly, this eclipse didn't come to overwhelm you. It came to realign what's been waiting for your attention. And if even one part of this helped you understand your own inner landscape a little better, then you're already moving in the right direction. Don't rush to interpret everything. Don't pressure yourself to make sense of every shift. Just take the next day or two gently, like you're walking into a new room and letting your eyes adjust. You don't need force, you don't need certainty. You just need presence. Hope has a funny way of showing up the moment you stop demanding answers, and trust it's already on its way to you.